alert. Objective dog has been armed.
Yep, it wasn't clickbait. There's actually a massive whale in the game. Looks like a big old blue whale to me. So a bit of a story for you. I'm back from Los Angeles now. I've been at EA Play and E3. And on the Saturday and Sunday I got to play BF5 and some videos that I've already done, you may have seen them. But I've also got a load of footage that I wanted to go through in this video too. And we'll be looking at various things and talking about the core mechanics and some feedback and ideas based on what we now know about the game. So it was coming to the end of the capture session on the Sunday, and Lars Gustafsson and Andreas Morell, who are developers at DICE working on Battlefield 5, they came over to me where I was playing and just had a chat with me about the game, looking for a bit of feedback. So I talked with them for a bit, and then Lars Gustafsson says to me, "Have you found the whale yet?" Now, you guys know how much I love Easter eggs, so I was like, well, Lars doesn't usually troll or joke around about that kind of stuff, so I then sat down for around 45 minutes looking for a whale on this map. And I didn't know if it was the nighttime version or the day version. All that he said to me was, "Have you found the whale yet?" So I just stopped playing and I just started swimming around, seeing if I could find a whale. And then in the last game of the day, on the nighttime version of this map, I was swimming around and there it is. It's a whale. Call it an Easter egg, call it a bit of artistic detail in the level, but there you go. There it is. The Moby Dick of Battlefield has been found. And I think it just swims up and down here like every now and again. And if you actually pay attention, you can see the water spurt up as if it's coming out of the whale spout every now and again to just give you a clue that there's something coming. But I was very surprised to find it. I didn't think that there would be something like that in the game, but there you go, there is. And Andreas actually also told me that there's a skier in the mountains. So naturally I was looking at the mountains to see if I could find a skier. I'm guessing that's some kind of Easter egg that just appears every now and again. You see someone skiing down the mountain, and we know that skiing is in the single player version of the game because they've teased some of that in the single player trailers that they've released. So there we have it, there's a whale in Battlefield 5. Who knew? Now this is going to be a long video because I've got a lot to cover, but there is a lot of new stuff and we'll be going over attrition, 3D spotting, gunplay, fortifications, all of the core ideas, and just giving a bit of feedback on them. So what I wanted to talk about first was the minimap in this game and minimap spotting. So if you'd have seen at the start of that clip there, I fired a spotting flare into the sky. I'd actually jumped out of a plane, and for some reason I've got an MP40. I don't know if they've got rid of the pilot classes. Fired the flare up into the sky, and it covers this absolutely huge area on the minimap, and that's given me a ton of information. So much information. I mean, look at this in particular as well. Look at the flare on the map. It's just lighting everyone up, and that's giving you a real-time feed of where they are. And this just feels a bit counterintuitive to me. And it brings up a few questions. Number one, should the spotting flare be this good? That's the first question. You can also get it on one of the support archetypes, so you can just keep firing flares into the air and dropping yourself ammo and then getting a new one straight away. So imagine you've got a couple people doing that on a team. You can just cover the entire map in flares, in spotting flares, and give your entire team the positions of all of the enemies on the map. Now, I think that this is counterintuitive to the kind of game that DICE are trying to design here. They've gone out of their way to remove easy 3D spotting. The only way to get 3D spotted now, it seems, is with a gadget that the recon class uses, or if you get suppressed. But if you can see all of that information on the minimap anyway, doesn't that kind of defeat the purpose of that? So look at the minimap right now. Just one flare in the sky from me, and we've got real-time information on where all of the enemy are. It lasts a while, and it is just really counterintuitive to me. So I think what they need to do here is either nerf the radius of that spotting flare so it's way smaller and so you have to be a bit more accurate with it, or just change the way that the 2D spotting works so it's not real time. Instead, you know, maybe a pulse or a ping every 5 seconds or so that just gives you a general idea or a general area of where enemies are. Like, you shouldn't be getting that kind of feedback in this game, in my opinion. They've swung everything else towards the hardcore with the gunplay, with the attrition, no auto-regenerating health to full, less ammo in the game. It's all more focused on team play. But then you've got such a easy-to-use gadget like that just gives the players a crutch. And again, you're playing from the minimap. I thought they wanted to remove that from the game. So I'd like to see that 2D spotting system changed, where maybe it just gives you a rough idea of where people are. It shouldn't give you real-time updates on enemies' positions anymore, because you can still play the game from the minimap using that. And I think it should be more using your eyes and your ears. Maybe there's an argument to completely remove 2D spotting from the minimap entirely, or even some people might say the minimap itself, but I think with this game the minimap does give you a lot of great information that players should have, like where the cap radius is on the flags, or if you see those little white icons on the map, those are actually fortifications. So if you see an area on the map like that, you can go and fortify that. But as for 2D spotting goes, I'm really not a fan of a gadget like that being in this game, and I think it defeats the purpose of the core gameplay design choices that they've made here. I think DICE really need to look at this and take a stance and decide what kind of game they're designing here. Like, is this a half measure, and are we still going to have the crutches that make the game super easy and accessible, or is this game going to be a thoughtful, challenging, tactical game, which is, in my opinion, what it should be? And they should remove the gadgets and crutches that one player on their own can easily use to gain so much power and information. I don't want to play this game if I'm on the minimap all the time. It removes all flanking possibilities, and it will punish you and give away your position when you haven't made any mistakes. The current 2D spotting system that they've got in this game is bad. It doesn't work, and I think that DICE should look at it and make a decision on it one way or the other. So what you're seeing now is just a nice little section of gameplay that I recorded where I was pushing up to the flag and taking people out, being very methodical. It's kind of demonstrates the slower pace, I suppose, of the game. I mean, you can still take out a lot of people very quickly because the TTK is so fast and people are generally running around on less health because they're trying to get used to the new medic system and no full auto regenerating health. But I really enjoyed just being the assault player in this game and using the STG, especially that rocket. I don't know where that went. I think it went all the way through the house. Maybe it just bugged out, but whatever. I just enjoyed it, and this gun and other guns in the game actually have proper single fire modes now, so when you're trying to engage infantry at distances, that's actually useful. I mean, even the standard tap fire is still useful, but if you want a dedicated single fire mode in games like Arma, PUBG, you know, where that's actually useful, then this game has that now. And as you can see, I mean, trying to engage people at distances is much easier when you've got a dedicated single fire mode like that. Now, one idea that I've seen since people have seen the gameplay is, should this game have an on-screen compass? Now, I'm not talking about a round compass, but the kind of line compass that you see in games like PUBG and Fortnite at the top or bottom of the screen, and it's got all of the degrees listed out, and when you look around it actually moves, so you can say to your teammate, oh, there's a tank at 90 degrees, underarm grenade throw coming up here, just to interrupt. Very nice. Now, whilst I like the sound of that idea, you have to think that the HUD is already getting pretty cluttered up in this game. Obviously, it's work in progress. This is a pre-alpha build, so I expect that it will improve before launch. But also the fact that you've got the contextual spot in this game now. So instead of pressing Q to spot people, you can now Q to ping things on the map. And that will inform your squad of whatever you want them to know about. So in a way that kind of fixes that problem for you. Why would I need to tell my squad mates there's an enemy at 45 degrees when I could just ping the location on the map and they can see that? So as cool as the compass would be, I don't think it's necessary in this game. Would it be useful if the game didn't have a minimap and it didn't have the contextual spot? Yes, absolutely, but I don't see those two things going away. Now what you're going to see here is the roll from a first person perspective, so jump out the window. It doesn't go all the way around because I think that would be quite disorientating. So that's how it looks from first person, but in third person you will actually see the character do a complete roly-poly when they land. Now a lot of people after the first gameplay video I posted asked if I could get some footage of the diving and shooting, because for whatever reason some people didn't believe me when I said there's like a second before you can shoot, and I mean you can see here I dive and then it is about a second later before I can pull the trigger, so I'm just pressing Z to dive and go prone, and then I'm holding mouse 1 as soon as I dive, and you can't shoot for about a second, so there's not going to be any stupid dolphin diving and shooting in the game. And you can actually see that as my gun goes to the center, the first couple of bullets are actually off to the left, and then they get closer to the center as your stance recovers. So even after the dive, you are a little bit inaccurate too. Now then, moving on to the new health system in the game. So having played the game a bit more, I like where it is at the moment, and I think that it's going to take a bit for people to get used to, because there's a lot of times where you've been hit, and because you've played the more recent Battlefield games lots, you just expect to be put back on 100 HP, but you're not, and you go into a fight and you die to a couple of bullets, and you're like, why did I die so quick? Well, I honestly think that that's going to change over time, and I don't mind the system at the moment where if you want health back, you have to get it from a medic or drop it for yourself as a medic or go to a supply station. I think that it's going to reward the players who are more conscientious of that and are actively looking to seek out medics and help their teammates by dropping medkits themselves, or build supply stations or find supply stations, and I do think it's something that people will get used to over time. For the solo players out there who maybe aren't enjoying it as much, one idea could be that if you kill a medic, they might also drop a small health pack that will give you a small bit of health back, because as you guys know, now all enemies drop a bit of ammo when they die, so you can actually run over their body and loot them to pick up a bit of ammo. So maybe medics might be able to drop a small bit of health for you. Just an idea. I'd rather that something like that wasn't in the game, and I'd much prefer it to be based on teamwork, but there's been a 50-50 split on the new auto regeneration thing for sure. I just think that people need to get used to this new system, but it does make the medic class very strong, because at the moment the medic really is the only self-sustainable class in the game, because you can play it on your own, you can drop yourself health after getting in a gunfight, you've got pretty decent guns to use as well, and if you need ammo you can pick it off the players that you kill. So medics at the moment are very strong in this game, and I don't really want to go back to a situation you had in BF3 where medics were clearly the best anti-infantry class to play. I don't think it will turn out like that in the end when the game launches, but I think it's something that DICE need to be a bit mindful of. In terms of the mechanics of the new system, like how much health do you get back automatically, well, I've watched the footage back and I think you will always auto regenerate 35 HP. I don't know if there's a top end limit to the auto regeneration, but I imagine that there is. Now moving on, we're going to talk about fortifications, because I'm still not 100% sure about these, but what I saw was that by the Sunday, because we got to play the game for around 3 hours on Saturday and around 4 hours on Sunday. On the Sunday, I was seeing a lot more fortifications built up on the map, and people were using them effectively. So I do still think, as I said in my previous video, that people will use these, but it's a case of informing them where they are and also putting them in the right location so they're useful. So here on the A point, when we were attacking, or the other team was supposed to be defending, you can see there are a couple of buildings where if you fully fortify them, they're in decent tactical positions. Like this one here, for example, you can fortify the whole thing downstairs, and I think this is a building that's been destroyed and you can rebuild it. So there's some use to this, definitely, on flags, and I think you'll see it in game modes like front lines and breakthrough, where there is a definite line of defense that people can build up. These will be useful and players will use them. See, this was me and Tommy from Two Angry Gamers. We just went around the entire house. Look at that. That looks awesome, doesn't it? It looks like a proper defensive position. They didn't have a machine gun there that you could build, but you could, if you wanted to, set up with a bipod and just try and defend it yourself. And then there's another building right next to it, which we thought, yeah, well, we might as well do that one now. You can't shoot the fortifications down, but they can be destroyed with explosives. But look at that. That looks like a decent position, doesn't it? Imagine that you're playing a conquest map where you hold two flags that are in a row, then fortifying them will be a viable tactic. And here's a machine gun position that you can build. One problem though that I find with machine guns in Battlefield games, and just being the LMG guy that likes to bipod and just rain down fire, is that you're such an easy target. Maybe that's how it should be, but what about if support players that were bipoded using a light machine gun or using a stationary machine gun could duck? What if you could press a button where you put your head down? You can't fire when you've got your head down, but you can duck. So if you're reloading, your player will duck down, or you can press a button to move your head down. It's definitely an interesting idea for a mechanic. And I'm not talking about something that you could spam, so you could just go up, down, up, down, up, down. I'm talking about an animation that takes like a second or something where you duck your head down into cover, and then when you want to use the gun, yes, you can be shot at, but if you need to take some cover, you can't stay on the machine gun, but you'll duck down and you'll be unable to fire. Us fortifying this position was pretty decent, and it allowed us to hunker down and get a few kills. I was just trying to wallbang some people there. I still haven't managed to get a wallbang kill. But as for the fortifications go, I think they need to give a bit more incentive for players to do them. Obviously, you can just throw points out willy-nilly, but you don't want to get into a situation where people will just build stuff to get to the top of the scoreboard. So instead, what I'd like to see is a system where if you fortify a flag, let's say, so the more fortifications on it, perhaps the longer it's going to take to decap. And that could be an interesting idea in a game mode like Breakthrough or like Conquest. So that gives value to the players who want to build stuff and be that builder guy. So maybe it's going to add like a 5 or 10% capture time to that flag if it's heavily fortified. And yes, if the enemy team manage to capture it, they'll be able to use those fortifications too. Just a thought. So we've already talked about the visual effects and how I think we feel like there's a bit too much visual effects going down, but I had to show you guys this because this is just very technically impressive. It looks like the snow particles in this game are physics based. That's a ridiculous level of detail. They build up in the corners, they interact with the ragdolls as the guy runs past. You can see that he's having an effect on the particles. That is just a crazy level of detail. I noticed it on the tanks too. If you look at the tanks in third person, or if you're looking at somebody driving around a tank in the blizzard, you will see that snow starts to build up on the lines and the cracks in the tanks. Visually, it's very messy, and I think it does affect gameplay, but on a technical level, damn, it's very impressive. Now then, something that I didn't cover in my first video was that on the support class, some of the archetypes have guns that can't be aimed down the sight if they aren't bipoded. You'll see some of that in a second. You did see it at the start of the clip, and someone tweeted me about this and was quite confused. They thought, oh, that's a really bad idea, why can't I aim down the sight with this gun? But it's only on a few of the archetypes. There are support weapons that you can aim down the sight with, like the Bren for example. But I don't mind it because it's reinforcing the idea of specific roles and defined gameplay styles within each class. So if you want to be that hyper defensive support player like we were just talking about, you will do better at that if you take one of these archetypes and one of these weapons. It is wildly inaccurate if you hip fire and right click like this, but if you bipod and hunker down, you're going to get that laser beam accuracy that you're after. Now, wrapping things up for today, just a few little clips. You can see here that they've added exit vehicle animations, so you're not going to just be able to teleport out of a vehicle anymore. Obviously, we had enter animations in BF1. This clip I just thought was cool. This is me on a stationary anti-air gun, and I take out an enemy plane, and I just love how fast it drops to the ground after it's destroyed. Check it out. Just so fast. Like imagine that thing dropping down next to you. But I do have a concern about the towing in this game. Imagine you were on a stationary anti-air like that. What's going to stop someone driving up to you and towing you away if you don't want to be towed? Maybe DICE have already thought about that and some can't be towed, some can. I don't know. We'll see. Finally for today, a bit of airplane gameplay for you. I didn't get much, but I've got a little bit. There's a few kills in here. There's a few interesting things that they're doing with the air gameplay. I think it's much harder to attack ground targets now because there's barely any 3D spotting in the game, so it's a lot more challenging to be an air-to-ground pilot, which is good because I think the planes in BF1 were very strong, and one of the main annoyances and complaints in BF1 was that you'd just constantly get killed by planes, especially in game modes like Operations. So I think that isn't going to be as bad in this game. Although I think there is a cool teamwork opportunity here. If you're in a squad with someone who's on the ground and you're flying a plane, they could use the ping and mark a location where enemies were, and that could give you a general idea of where to drop bombs or do a strafing run, for example. Another reason that this will be more difficult now is the fact that planes have limited ammo and you won't auto regenerate to full anymore. Instead, they've got these rings in the sky which you can fly through to rearm. I'm not sure if there was ones that you could fly through that would completely repair you to full. Maybe there was, but there was definitely ammo ones. But I think that if they're going to do stuff like this, then they need to put those rings that you fly through way back towards your deployment, because they're kind of above the playing field at the moment. And that means that as a pilot, very easily and very quickly you can rearm, and if there are ones that give you health back, you can get your health back very quickly too. So you can just be a constant menace to armor on the ground and infantry on the ground. So if they're going to put those things in, I think they should put them way back over the deployment zone, so planes have to actually go and fly back to their base. I'm not suggesting that they need to land like you would have to do in BF2, for example, and that's because of the way that planes spawn in this game. You don't take off from a runway. But I think that getting ammo back and getting health back should require you to fly much further away from the active battlefield, just so pilots have to think about it a bit more and give the people on the ground a bit of breathing room. And that's all for today, guys. I hope you enjoyed this one. If you did, do consider giving it a like. That would be much appreciated, thank you. And also share it if anyone's looking for interesting Battlefield 5 gameplay details. If you didn't like it, dislike it, no problem. Comment down below on your feelings and thoughts on some of the ideas and gameplay in this video. Subscribe if you want to see more. Make sure to use the bell for notifications, and I'll see you in the next one.